Hi everyone, today I'm going to film a very highly requested video and I might seem a bit more nervous than usual because this is a pretty big topic for me to talk about. Today I'm going to talk about my self-harm story. In November of 2013 I filmed my anorexia story and since then I've always been wanting to talk about my self-harm story. And I've gotten lots of requests to do so, but it's a really hard topic for me to talk about, even harder than my eating disorder. It's not that I'm embarrassed, well I guess I am, but it's a very touchy subject. And I mean everyone sort of knows I had an eating disorder in like my personal life, but I don't think everyone knows that I've self-harmed in my personal life. So that's why it makes it so hard for me to talk about. But I thought that you guys deserve to know my story a bit more and get to know me a bit better because it's a really big part of my life. I have a lot of trouble talking about it, so I wrote down a lot of notes to keep me on track, but it's a really hard topic for anyone that struggles through it, I know. And there's a lot of stereotypes surrounding self-harm and things like that, and the stereotypes really aren't true because a lot of stereotypes do not describe me, I guess, or I like to think that they don't describe me. So, I mean, anyone can self-harm, so be careful about what you say to other people. People leave me mean comments all the time, and I don't really care. But it's more for other people that it bothers me when I see others like getting hurt and stuff about it, and it's not something to joke about, you know? So with that being said, I hope that you guys find this video helpful. Maybe you can relate to it to help you, know that you're not alone. And yeah, I guess I'll talk about my story now. Basically, I started to self-harm in 2011, but before that I had self-harm thoughts. And I'll sort of put this into perspective with my anorexia story also. So in 2010, I had an injury with my knee and my shins, and that was 2010. I was 15-ish, 14, 15. And with that injury, I already spoke about in my anorexia story that I really had a bad image of myself and I had no self-confidence. So when I had that injury, I couldn't exercise, and that triggered me a lot to like feel worse about myself and that I couldn't lose weight and stuff. So I had these thoughts about self-harm, and I remember vividly, like I was 14 or 15 and I was like, I missed skating a lot, and I went up to my dad or my mom or something. I was like in tears, and I was just like so frustrated with everything, and I was just like, I'm gonna cut myself with my skate. Oh yeah, and trigger warning, I'm gonna mention what I used to hurt myself with and stuff like that in this video, so yeah. I told that to my parents and then they were like, oh come on, you're just saying that, like don't ever do that. And then so that was like my little thoughts. And then in 2000, I never did it though. And then in 2011, when my eating disorder began, I used to self-harm through, I don't remember the first time I self-harmed because it was more like out of frustration that I did it. It was when I was trying to lose weight, and I would use my weights and I would like hit myself with my weights while I was working out, and I would bruise myself as a form of self-harm. So it started in 2011, like in December or something like that, and then in January, that's when my eating disorder like really began, 2012, the same school year though. I was 16 at that time, and that was the first time that I actually cut myself. I remember I had a friend who had cut herself, and she was struggling a lot too, and it had nothing to do with her, but I think that it like opened up my eyes to like more ways to self-harm myself. I mean, I was already doing it through eating less and bang and like bruising myself and stuff, but I think she like her not influence but sort of gave me the idea. And so I remember the first time I cut myself was January 10th, 2012, and that's when I first cut myself, and I used scissors to do that. And then after that, I had a really hard time after that. Ever since then I've been self-harming. It quickly became an addiction, and actually I told my boyfriend at the time, in January I think, I told him at the same time that I told him about my eating disorder, and he sort of didn't know how to react. I remember the first day after I told him, he didn't really say anything about it. He didn't know how to react, and I mean, what are you supposed to say to someone who's like your girlfriend? It's like, hey, I cut myself, you know. I never expected anything like that before, so I understand like why he didn't say anything. But at the same time, it did hurt that he didn't react to it. But I mean, we learn through recovery that we can't depend on other people's like opinions and what they say to make us feel better. So anyways, after that, I used to self-harm a lot during that time. That was when I started re-eating, and I started self-harming more because I couldn't control my eating anymore, or my eating disorder lost control, whichever way you want to see it. And then, so yeah, I would self-harm instead of starve myself, and I remember around in February or March, I would self-harm like every day, and I would also use my scissors, and the way that I cut myself with my scissors left me like pretty significant scars. Yeah, after that, in like April I think, I took apart a razor blade, and because I wanted a different form of self-harm, I was like, this isn't cutting enough or whatever, so it's like I use a razor blade. And then after that, I actually never used those blades, because I was very satisfied with my scissors, and at the same time I was like, I don't know, it just didn't seem as effective to me to do that, and it just seemed like a bad idea, and it is, like, don't do that. And like, I remember in about the summer of 2012, my boyfriend was over, and we had this long talk, and he was just like, how can I help you and stuff, and like, I remember this so well. It was like really meaningful. He was like, how can I help you and stuff like that, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. Like, I was just like crying in his arms. I remember right here on my bed, and I was just like so sad, and like I didn't know what to do because I was just having a really hard time with everything. And then I remember I was like, you can do one thing for me. I went in my drawer and I pulled out the little box that I used to keep my razor blades in, and I was like, throw these out for me. And that was really hard for me to do. And he like looked at it and he was just like he couldn't say anything, like he didn't know that was happening, and like I just would like burst it out at him like everything, you know. So then after that we went on a walk outside, and I remember that we were walking and he had the box in his pocket, and we were just like sort of walking like awkwardly, like we knew what we were gonna do, but at the time I was 17, so we were still like mature enough. Now that I think about it, like 17, I'm 18 right now. It's crazy. Anyways, he had the box, and then we were walking around, and then we went to, we ended up at a sewer, like, really close. I actually remember which sewer it was, and he, like, opened the box, and then he threw them out there, into the sewer, and that was just, like, a really big thing for me. Like, I remember, at that time I had a bad Twitter, and I, like, remember I told everyone on my bad Twitter, like, oh my gosh, my boyfriend is so amazing, he just, like, threw my blades for me, and I'm so lucky and stuff, and I really was, like, so lucky. Like, I don't know, I needed a boyfriend that had the strength to do that. Like, he thought I had stopped self-harming, I think. He thought it wasn't a big issue anymore, and then he saw my cuts and he was like, what? It was just a really bad time for him. I don't know how he did it, like, honestly. I have a lot of respect for him, especially now, that I reflect more upon it. I was a lot less mature then, and also when we left each other I was a lot less mature than I am now. And now that I look back on it, I'm like, wow, he was really something, like, to admire, you know? He did something really hard, and I really respect him for that. Honestly, like, I don't know what I would have done if he wasn't there. I remember, like, I'd cut myself and I just have, like, my sleeves rolled up or something, and he'd see, and then he'd try to talk to me about it, and, like, so many people are so, like, I don't know, self-harm is such, like, something you don't talk about, and, it just meant a lot to me that he actually brought it up and cared. So, after, the summer, I stopped self-harming for a bit. It didn't last that long, though. I restarted cutting myself with my scissors, and then I started CETA, which is like grade 12, first year of university, whatever. So that was a really hard time for me. That's when my anorexia really started to get bad. And I remember from like October to December, I didn't self-harm at all. So the longest I'd gone clean was 2 months during that period. I remember since I started, I had gone about like 1 month clean. But other than that, not more than a month. But then when my anorexia got really bad, I went 2 months clean. And that was because during that time I just concentrated so much on food, I couldn't even think about harming myself any other way. And so that's that. I didn't self-harm for 2 months, I remember that. And then when I restarted recovery in December of 2012, I restarted to self-harm because I was eating more, and if I ate, I felt disgusting and horrible, and like it was just a way for me to like not feel better, but to take out my feelings out of something else. It's very hard to identify why I self-harmed. It was always because I was never happy with my body, and it was just like a way for me to put the pain somewhere else, I guess. And so then I restarted to self-harm. I remember I'd go to my doctor and she'd see them, and I'd be so scared. Like, I remember the first time I saw her, I was like, well, and she was like, so what do you do when you feel like really bad? And I was like, oh, I don't know, I just go to my room and like shut the door. She was like, you don't do anything else? And I was like, no. And then while I remember she was taking my blood pressure and my pulse, and I had self-harm on my left arm, and she did it on my right arm, like here. And so I was like, she took my blood pressure and my pulse was like at 90 something, and at that time it was like usually at 50 something. She was like, are you stressed out about something? And I was like, well, actually, yeah. Because I hurt myself, like my heart is racing just thinking about this moment, because she didn't know I used to self-harm, and I never told her about that part of me. I was like, yeah, well, I sort of hurt myself, and she was like, what do you mean? I was like, well, my arms and stuff. So then she like pulled up my sleeve and she saw it, and then she like talked to me for a bit, and she like comforted me, and it was just really hard like to tell her. She looks so like sad. I mean, it's one thing when your patient suffers from an eating disorder, but then when they take out their emotional pain on themselves, on their bodies, through another form than just starving themselves, it's like, I think it really hits everyone hard. And at that time my parents didn't know either. I was not really with my boyfriend anymore. Well, he was, I wasn't. I was sort of like, I was a different girl. That's all I can say, like, that sick girl is not me. So anyways, that was a really scary moment when my doctor found out. And then I was like, oh yeah, it's just I used to do it a lot, but I'm never gonna do it again and stuff like that and blah blah blah, and I was just like freaking out. Anyways, that was a lie, because obviously that's not how easy it is, and I kept on self-harming after that. In March, I had really suicidal thoughts, and that's the third time I got hospitalized for my eating disorder, but I also got hospitalized because I was very suicidal. I had very dark thoughts, and I used to cut myself like every day. I was eating relatively normally, but I just couldn't handle all the pressure and the guilt that came with it. So that's when I got hospitalized. And I don't remember exactly when, but around that time, my parents found out that I self-harmed. Well, at least my mom did. My dad never actually talked to me about it. But my mom did, and she didn't understand, like, the first time that she knew about it. She freaked out. Like, I think I told her. And she didn't believe me. I was like, yeah, you see this? Like, this is what happens. And, like, I showed her my cut. And it really wasn't a bad cut or anything. And she freaked out. She couldn't take it. And, it was really hard for her to accept it. And she was in denial for a really long time. But then eventually I asked my psychologist to explain to her, like, a bit what it is and why I do it, because she really didn't understand, like, why. And during the summer, my dad sort of knew what was up because I had scars all over me from the winter time, because that's when, like, I used to cut myself a lot, during the winter when I started recovery, and so eventually, like, people, like, saw my marks and stuff, but I had a hard time, like, when people would see and ask about it. Like, I remember that summer I went to a party, and I was, like, standing there with, like, my t-shirt or whatever, my tank top, and a girl was like, why did you write on yourself? And I'm like, so I sort of, like, didn't know what to answer, because it was, like, scars and stuff. She thought I'd written on myself, and, like, a couple people actually thought that, because I used to, well, I still do, I cut words, or I self-harm words into myself, like, usually it's fat or die. Those are my favorite words. I use them interchangeably. But in the fall of 2013, so the fall just passed, I had a lot of panic attacks with my anxiety. My weight was getting up higher, and it was very hard for me. This year, like, the past year has been, like, the past 9 months-ish has been, like, the hardest so far in my recovery, because once you get to a healthy weight, that's when you really have to face the problem, you know, because before you're just trying to get to a healthy weight to face the problem, because you can't recover if you're not healthy and you can't think properly. So that was what I've been concentrating on, and now that I'm at a healthy weight, it's, like, been so much harder. In the fall, I used to get a lot of panic attacks, and it was just, like, really, really hard for me. And I remember I'd have trouble, like, staying at school and stuff, and my mom would have to come and get me, and I would self-harm a lot. And during that time, that's when I started using a razor blade again. And, so yeah, in the fall of 2013, I took apart another razor, and this time I actually used it. And ever since then, I haven't self-harmed really with scissors, ever since, only a couple times. And I have to say that, it's been really hard ever since then. It's been, like, an addiction. Because when I had self-harm with scissors, it was definitely not the same as with a razor blade. Razor blades, I think, compared to scissors, they didn't hurt as much. Like, when I cut myself, it didn't hurt as much, but it definitely gave out a lot more blood. Sorry if I'm getting graphic. So like to get the same amount of blood, you'd have to cut yourself a lot more with the scissors. That's basically what I'm trying to say. So anyways, that was my new form of self-harm. With that, I became really depressed because people would see my cuts and stuff, and I just didn't feel worthwhile. Like, I didn't feel worthy of life, and I just felt really bad all the time. And then I would have a lot of suicidal thoughts, but I'd have like certain plans, but I wouldn't have like detailed plans. Like, I'd think about suicide, but I didn't think I'd actually do it, you know? Like, I don't know if I'd have the nerve to do it back then. But then, in the winter 2014, so the winter just passed, I actually went on vacation, and the vacation went really well. There were a couple times where I was really stressed out and I wished I'd had my blades with me, but I didn't bring them with me on vacation, which was good. And also, while I was an inpatient, I didn't bring any of them with me, so I never self-harmed while I was inpatient. So yeah, actually the longest time without self-harm was like a month while I was inpatient the second time. But then, I got back from vacation and school restarted and I was like back to reality, and again, that was really hard, and I struggled a lot with self-harm once again. I remember the first day I got back from vacation, I think I cut myself because I was just like so overwhelmed. I was like, this is so different, like I don't know what to do. So that was when I got back from vacation. That's a great way to come back. And then yeah, after my vacation I went to the Douglas, which is the mental hospital here in Montreal. I had my first appointment there because I was getting transferred from child care to adult care. And so I had an appointment with the psychiatrist there, and basically he was like, well, he already sort of knew me, he knew my story and stuff, I already like met them once before, but he was like, you have a lot of, he was like talking to me about borderline personality disorder. It's very, not common, but it's like, it happens in a lot of people with depression and anxiety and stuff, and it's just like very impulsive behaviors, and he said I had a lot of those traits. But he was saying to recover from BPD, a lot of the recovery is the same as for anorexia, depression, and anxiety. It's all like being mindful and stuff like that. So yeah. So then that was just like, I felt sort of relieved because I felt like someone finally like knew how I was feeling and could really describe like why all of a sudden I'd have the urge to go jump in front of a metro or something, a subway. Other people say subway, because that would happen. And yeah, I'm not going to tell you my suicidal plans or anything, but I started getting really suicidal. But I had a lot of pressure upon myself, and I wanted to succeed, and I was having a hard time accepting my weight, and then also I got my period back. And during that time I was like, I would do anything to like take the pain away. Like, I would find knives, cut myself with knives, not just razor blades, you know, like knives, and like I think about death and suicide all the time. And then during that I also started burning myself. So I went from bruising to cutting with scissors to cutting with razor blades to burning, and now I guess it sort of brings me to where I am now. Where I am today, the winter since January has been definitely the hardest time for my self-harm. Since I've ever started since I was 16, now I'm 19 in less than a week. And this has been the hardest period. I think it's because I'm really facing like the true problems and stuff, and it's very hard for me to face those, but I'm trying my best to face them. But during that time I have to let out my anxieties, my worries somewhere else. That happens to be on myself. But like for instance, I'll self-harm basically every day. If I don't self-harm one day, it's because I fell asleep instead of self-harming. I woken up before in the morning with like my blades next to me because I was going to, and I just fell asleep because I was so like exhausted with my thoughts and stuff. So I don't know, I haven't been completely honest with you guys this past couple of months. Like I have moments where I'm, no, it's not going well, and I also have moments where I'm like, it's going great. But I guess those are sort of like those impulsive thoughts and stuff like that. But overall it hasn't been very good. Eating wise, you know, eating wise is okay. I'm eating normally and stuff. It's more like the deeper issues that are bothering me now. Yeah, like, I'm like 15 hours clean, not even, like 12 hours, no, 14 hours clean. I'm not even a day clean yet. Yeah, there's a lot of like stress that comes with self-harm. Me, my biggest stresses are that I want to lose weight, so I go to the gym, but I don't want people at the gym to see my cuts, which is just like a vicious circle, and I know it's not good, but that's my biggest stress at the moment. Not a lot of things trigger me for self-harm, but some things do, like if I see other people self-harm like that I know in real life, but even that doesn't really bother me. And then when I talk about stopping, or when people, or when my psychologist or something talks about stopping self-harm, that really triggers me. Also, when I have no cuts that I can see, or if I have like no scars, that triggers me. And then also, my obsessive compulsive disorder triggers my self-harm all the time. Like if like I don't know, my books aren't aligned or something, I will cut myself because I can't stand it. Like if things aren't the same, I will cut myself because it's not the same, and it just like creates so much anxiety. Like I just want to blow up. That's how I describe it. Like I want to blow up. And so yeah, during the last month or two, it's been really hard. I've had a lot of suicidal ideas and a lot of plans for suicide. But I'm still here today. I'm trying my best. I know that if I were to leave, it would hurt my mom and people, so. But now I'm trying to recover for myself and not for others, so that's that. As for, yeah, so this past month or two has been really hard. As for, scars and stuff, I do have stuff to get rid of the scars, but, I mean, at this point it's like useless to use it because I'm not, I don't know, I'm not ready to stop completely. Like I'm 14 hours clean, but in my head I'm not like, yeah, I'm never gonna do it again, you know? It'd be like a bad promise, like you're realistic. So yeah, I have a lot of scars, mostly on my arms. Can't really see. I don't really have that many that are visible. Cuts, I mean, on my legs I have a lot. On my right arm I don't have that many. On my hands, my coach yesterday, he saw my hands and he was like, oh, what are those lines and stuff? And I was like, these are a while ago. And he was like, oh yeah, like they look like little veins and stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's what happens when I get cold. Which is true, but it's not that. I definitely do get a lot of questions about it today, and I don't really know how to answer them. So I think I'm gonna end this video right here. I'm sorry, this is a really bad video. Like, it's really hard for me to talk about my self-harm. I don't know, like, what I'm gonna do with this video. Like, I don't even know if I'm gonna keep it up for a while or what. But I hope that this video helped you, satisfied your curiosity. I don't know, something like that. I hope that you guys are doing well. Let me know if there's any kind of videos that you would like about self-harm. I do film a lot of videos about eating disorders and stuff because it's easier for me to talk about. Self-harm, on the other hand, not really. But maybe someday I'll have the courage to do them. So let me know, like, if you have any self-harm related videos that you'd like, and yeah, just to let you know that if you're thinking about self-harming, that's basically like if you decide to start smoking. Like, it's like a way to destroy yourself, and I promise you, self-harm will not make you feel any better. If anything, it'll make you feel worse. So if you're self-harming, just think about me next time you're doing it and be like, think about what I just said. Like, think about how it's not going to get you anywhere, and it's just like another addiction. And it's really not going to solve any of your problems, and it's not going to help any of your problems either. Don't be afraid to ask me any questions about self-harm. I'm not going to give you tricks or anything, obviously, but like how to distract yourself and stuff, I've gotten pretty good at that. And yeah, let me know how you guys are doing. I hope that this video was helpful. And just remember to stay strong, and you know, a lot of people go through this, so you're not alone. Don't worry about that. I'm sorry if this video is all over the place. It's just like really hard for me to talk about this. I've never talked to anyone like this before, except for like Elise, but yeah. Yeah, so that's my self-harm story. I'm still struggling today. Still self-harmed yesterday, so it's definitely not gone, but I'm thinking about filming an advice video for self-harm and stuff like that, and how to tell your parents and stuff like that. But it's definitely not an easy topic, I feel you. So I guess that's what I'm going to talk about for now. Let me know if you guys have any questions or whatever, and I'll talk to you in my next one. Bye!